Thank you very much, and thank you for having this hearing. Always enjoyable. I think there's some confusion. So the first question I have is for Dr. Eastman. The President's memo, as I understand it, doesn't include distribution of federal funds. It's only for the purposes of apportionment. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're absolutely correct on that. The two are distinct, and actually the constitutional authority is different for each of the two.
Okay, so this idea that if we don't count people who hire illegally is going to result in, say, less federal aid to the city of Chicago, that's not accurate, right?
That's not accurate. The count will be there. The question is, what are the numbers we use for apportionment purposes, not for all the other myriad uses for the census.
Okay, good. Now, I want to ask you about other people who are, I happen to live in Wisconsin. There are people who could be in Wisconsin for a variety of reasons. There could be people who were born there and will die there and live there their whole life. There can be people there who are diplomats from a consulate in Chicago who are driving around, seeing what's going on up there. You could have tourists who plan on leaving. You could have people who spend 7 months of the year in Florida and 5 months of the year in Wisconsin. You could have somebody coming over from Iowa who is taking care of an aging relative and expects to return home. Could you comment on these different situations? Are all of these people supposed to be counted for apportionate purposes? None of these counted for apportionate purposes? If we go through them, a diplomat, they're not counted, are they, even though they're in Wisconsin?
No, diplomats are counted even though they are persons in the state, if you want to take the technical reading that's been offered. Visitors are not counted. Temporary people passing through are not counted. And I think that's, Indians not taxed are not counted. We haven't had that category since citizenship was offered in the 1920s broadly to Native Americans, but for the first century and a quarter of our nation's history, they weren't counted. It's because, as the Supreme Court said, what we're aiming for here is who's being represented, who's in charge, who are the sovereign people that are choosing the representatives and allocating the distribution of seats in Congress and electoral votes based on that.
Okay, and I'll give you a specific example. Let's say I'm in Wisconsin. Let's say a woman moves into Wisconsin to take care of her aging mother and expects to return home from Iowa, has no intention of staying in Wisconsin. Maybe her mother's even in home hospice. Should she be counted as a Wisconsin resident?
I don't believe she should be, and I don't think the Census Bureau does. They ask where her normal place of abode is.
Okay. If I'm in this country illegally, how under any circumstances, what contortions would you reach to say that a person who is here illegally intends to stay permanently? I would think if I was caught in a country illegally, for whatever reason, I would expect to return home. Isn't it kind of insulting to somebody to say if they're here illegally, we're going to make the assumption they're there permanently?
Well, I think so, and you can read this into the phrase "in the state." The other argument has been, well, anybody that's residing in the state. Well, they've added the word "residing" to there, so why don't we also add the word, more consistent with the theory, lawfully residing there? That gets more at the question of who's being represented, those who are here lawfully.
Well, right. I'm going to go back to the two situations. If you have someone in Wisconsin taking care of an aging relative until they pass away, we consider their permanent resident another place, right? I think normally if you have a college student who is in Wisconsin for 9 months and then returns to Iowa, that Iowa is considered their place. They don't intend to stay in Wisconsin full time. By what logic could you say if someone, say, is overstaying a visa and, but plans on returning home, we assume returning home, what type of legal logic could you have to say that we expect that person to stay in Wisconsin permanently? I don't understand that. Can you imagine any legal theory that we're going to assume somebody who comes here illegally is going to be considered a permanent resident?
Well, there's one theory that's been floated called virtual representation. Even though they're not part of the citizenry of that state or that community, they are nevertheless there, and so therefore the people would treat them as if they're being represented, even though they have no say in the government. I think
Well,
that
why
is
don't we assume they're going to
fundamentally
leave, though? That's what I don't
incompatible.
understand.
Yeah, Congressman, I agree with you. I don't understand it either, but I'm trying to tease out the theory on the other side to try and make some sense of it, and I can't. It is so fundamentally incompatible with the notion of consent of the governed that is the cornerstone of our system of representative government.
Well, I just will say on behalf of the illegal citizens in my state, I think it's insulting to imply that in the future they're never going to obey the law. Thank you.